Yeah, I know
Yeah,
they don't care,
most
but I'm talking about
most
on the
aren't
issues
union
they do
workers.
care about, or they were made to care about, whatever you want to choose.
Mhm.
It definitely felt as though the lefties were going towards the center or towards the right in regards to immigration specifically and how they talked about the border. I mean, half of that conversation was them talking about like we reached the exact same numbers as Trump by the end of our campaign, or we're also want to stop the border issue. So it definitely feels as though they're meeting them pretty close to where they are on the right. No.
Yeah, but I don't think these issues
No.
mattered as much, even though everybody will say it. Even people on the right might want to take credit for it. I think it was just inflation. Inflation was high. It fucked the whole world. Everybody in the world lost seats in elections because of it, and it was true in the United States as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard you say people were made to care about it, but that's very different than saying people didn't care about it. People were constantly discussing this issue, and it was a big talking point, not just in right-wing media, but also just during the right-wing population. Every podcast was talking about it.
Sure.
Folks everywhere were constantly discussing it. So you may be right in regards to saying it's not a real problem they truly care about, but in terms of what they were speaking about, what they were, it's like the difference between how the inflation really is or how the economy really is and how people feel about it. What was that number you used to talk about? Like not the number of what the economy is actually at, but how people feel about the economy. I know that's like a stat that we've
Consumer
used.
sentiment.
Yes, consumer sentiment. I think the sentiment in regards to immigration was very real in terms of how people felt heightened about it, but not. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, like the sentiment is there, but it's just the sentiment is there because like the conservative messaging on it. Like nobody at the end of the day actually cares much about illegal immigrants or whatever. But that's why you can message on it because nobody, like very few people in the country are actually seeing firsthand any of these people come in. Like people are under this impression that like unemployment is high and that they're stealing jobs and that they're like, and none of these things are true. So it's just, if people if people genuinely cared about this, they would have been really mad about the border bill being shut down. That's what people would have cared about, but they didn't because it was all just like messaging. But like I think that Republicans are always going to win on messaging versus Dems because Republicans just there's so much better signaling around. Like if I say like no immigrants because they're coming here killing our people and stealing our jobs, what the is my counter as a Dem? We need more immigrants because they're helping the economy by taking our jobs. Like, do you have to get into like so much to even talk about that? I just don't think you have a message on the border as a Democrat.
Right, but your reason for why you're saying they don't care about the border, not truly, is because when the Democrats were trying to pass the border policy and it failed, like it was because of conservatives and they didn't care.
Democrats try. Wait, hold on, redo that. Wait, hold on. Also, 1 second.
You're saying
who just came in here?
the question I was gonna, the thing I was gonna say to you is saying you keep repeating the fact that people don't care about the border. And the reason they don't care about the border is that when Democrats passed or tried to pass that bill, Republicans killed it and nobody was really mad at them for it.
Sure.
But my point is that fact is irrelevant to the general population because, again, the facts don't really reach them. They don't really believe your fact. And their feelings around immigration are still valid in regard. When I say valid,
sure.
I'm
I'm sorry. Let me clarify real quick. Let me clarify. When I say they don't care, what I mean is like this wasn't anywhere near like the top motivating issue. Like it's down there. It's around the edges. Like a whole bunch of other stuff is around the edges. It just wasn't the big motivating issue. Like people care. It's a minor issue compared to everything else.
Do you not think it was like a top 5 issue to people?
I think that people said it was a top 5 issue. I think maybe they cared about like the messaging around it and everything. But I don't think that they didn't. I don't think they cared about the issue itself directly. They liked the messaging around it. But
That's crazy to me because almost every election all over the world, whenever the conversation is centered around immigration and stopping the influx of people, it is literally one of the most pivotal things for most campaigns.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but the problem is that Americans have no idea what it looks like to have rough times with immigration. We have no clue what that looks like. Our Muslims here are chill as even our illegal immigrants work here. Like our immigration here is crazy. We integrate people like insanity into this economy. In Europe, in Sweden, you get people shipping in boxes of grenades because they live there for 2 years and they're not even allowed to get a job, and the welfare states are insanely high in a lot of these European states. European countries legitimately have large issues relating to welfare states and huge influxes of immigrants that they take in. We don't have these problems in the United. A U.S. citizen has no business even pretending like he knows what rough immigration looks like. We have no concept of that in the U.S.
Right now, you're doing the whole comparative suffering. You're like, oh, people have it so much worse over there, so you have no right to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
All right, go ahead. Virtue signal. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Do it. Hit me up with that big virtue signal. Yes. I'm sorry. Americans deeply care. That 4% unemployment was brutal for us. I don't know how we even survived with all those illegal immigrants stealing all those bountiful jobs in California in agriculture. Like, man, that really hurt the average American a lot.
I'm not trying to virtue signal. I'm not trying to tell you what these people are thinking is logical or whatever. What I'm just trying to say is they feel it regardless.
I know they feel it, yes, because the Republicans message on it. But I'm saying there's no real way for Dems to counter message on it. But I'm saying that all of this is superseded by things like inflation. If homes were more affordable, and if people or people felt like homes were more affordable, and if people felt like prices and wages were more congruent, then they wouldn't give a fuck as much about it. That's why conservatives have doom scrolled or doomsayed about the border and caravans every single fucking election cycle. Sometimes people care about it, sometimes they don't. I think it just depends on how the economy's going. Like all the same bad messaging around immigration was there for fucking COVID, and before that, all the same caravans and the same crazy fighting age males were coming, but they didn't seem to care as much about it then. So I just think these are like secondary or tertiary.
Okay, I would agree they're secondary. You're right. If the economy is good, I don't think they're going to be concerned about these issues. But because things are not good, it becomes not a primary issue. It becomes almost 2 or 3 on the list. It really does, because they're looking for justifications for why their lives are not good.
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
And you could talk about the economy, you could talk about tariffs, but all these concepts are irrelevant to the average voter. The average person will never understand tariffs. They will never understand what these things imply. They want somebody to blame. It's impossible for them in their heads to understand the concept of tariffs or how that works. So instead, if you tell them it's the people trying to come around their border, it's the people trying to steal their jobs, it's the people trying to their women, and you give them stories about that.
I don't disagree
That's all
with
they're
this.
going to
I don't know. Yeah, I don't disagree with this. I don't know what you want me to say about this. Yeah.
No, but my whole point is you're making it sound like it's not a major issue to them, but in their head they've convinced themselves it is.
The reason why I'm saying it's not a major issue, 'cause you were, I don't even know if we disagree on this. You said that people are looking for somebody to blame, which definitionally makes it a secondary issue, because there's a problem that they feel like they have that they're looking for somebody to blame that problem on. If the problem isn't there, then they don't blame the immigrants. That's my feeling. So, like, if people felt like the economy was doing better, if inflation wasn't as big a deal as it was, then people wouldn't give as much a fuck about the immigrant thing. But when that stuff starts looking bad, well, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, the immigrants are taking our houses and our jobs and our welfare, and that's why. So that's what they point to, I think.
Okay. Do you feel like, since it wasn't a real issue, the Democrats were a bit virtue signaling by trying to appeal to the center or the right with their immigration talk? When they were talking about the border, they were trying to pretend to be tough on it as well. They were pretending it was a serious problem. That's what they were talking. Were they trying to meet those voters where they were at?
No, I think that Democrats do the opposite of virtue signal. I think Democrats signal themselves. Democrats have been incredibly, Piers likes to bring it up every time. Obama was hated by a lot of Latinos for his positions on deportations and his position on the border. But Republicans have still deluded themselves into thinking that Trump came into office to crack down on immigration after Obama. That's just not true. This is delusional, non-factual stuff. So no, the idea, I don't even think that Democrats tried to virtue signal it. They tried to policy change on it. They literally tried to pass legislation to change this. I don't even remember them talking about immigration that much. I feel like it didn't come up that much as a Democratic talking point, just kind of as a conservative talking point. But even for the conservatives, I don't know if immigration came up as much recently. I feel like it's all been centered on the economy, and then immigration is just kind of tossed in there as a secondary thing.
Yeah, no, I think leading up to the election, the first last 4 weeks, I think you're right. Before that, I think it was they just wouldn't shut the about it. I agree Democrats weren't trying to lead with that, but they were constantly asked about it. And that's where I would hear Kamala or Wallace's responses to these things. It wasn't something that they were necessarily leading with, but they were some that they were constantly being asked about, and there were some that they were constantly being critiqued on.
Sure, but when you've tried to solve this problem, when you know what the problem is, and you've taken real substantive steps to solve the problem, and nobody cares to hear that, what do they even say? What is a suggestion that you have that they should have changed their messaging on?
I don't think they need to change their messaging. I think they are pigeonholed into this image of people who don't care about the border, despite having tried. And I think even if it is immoral, it was a good move by Trump to block the bill, because it allowed him to be able to campaign on this issue and make Democrats look worse. And unfortunately, the perception of Democrats is that they don't care about this issue. So the question is, how do they change that? And I'm not quite sure. But it did work for them.
The change is to just, they have to fix the economy. The economy needs to be fixed. The economy just needs to get fixed. Even if they don't do it, they'll get, Trump is going to get a whole bunch of credit for the economy this run because of all the legislation that Biden passed, and the fact that interest rates are going to come down. So